Truly understanding the properties of the materials you're working with can be so helpful in aiding your creativity. Today we're going to learn some of those properties and apply them in a project using supplies from the Mystical Boho Create-Along box. Hey there, Sandy Huntress here for Create-Along. So two things we often use with polymer clay are mica powders and pastel powders, but they behave on polymer clay very differently, and we can use this to our advantage. When you add a mica powder to a piece of polymer clay, you only get one layer. So once I put this gold powder on here, I could add anything else to it I want, and it's not going to stick. Only one layer of the mica powder will stick. However, pastels soak into the polymer clay, and you can add layer upon layer upon layer of these to get real depth. So we're going to use the mica powders today as a resist. So we get whatever color we want in the mica powder, and then the background to that can be pastels with all kinds of beautiful layers. So here I have some white clay, and I'm just going to use one of the designs in the Mystical Boho Deco disc. Just a teeny weeny bit of Armor All. I like using Armor All because I can spread a super thin layer and know that every part of my design is going to have a release. Now with these deco discs, they're very detailed but kind of shallow. So what you need to do is add your clay and make sure it's going to all the edges, and then use your fingers. Press from the center out nice and firmly. And just make sure you've covered the entire design with pressure from the back side. And then you have a really beautiful design. If you didn't use the release, you'd be picking little bits of clay out of this for days. Next, we're going to apply the mica powders. And because this is a shallow design, we want to be careful. So first of all, threads up. Otherwise you will open it upside down and make a mess. I've done it many times. Next, dip your finger in there and then tap it off so that you don't have too much that falls down into the gaps. And then you can just lightly rub. Now I have to admit, on this one, I maybe rubbed a little too lightly because the lines didn't show so well. They're very fine, detailed lines on this particular pattern. And I ended up going over it afterwards with a pen like this. And that's just a product of the kind of design this is, very fine lines. I am definitely going over this a little bit heavier this time around. And that's okay, even the areas that maybe I wouldn't have wanted to get it, because it is kind of a boho, slightly grungy look. So there, that's that. Now I have a cutter that's just the right size. You could also cut slightly outside of it if you had a slightly bigger one. Or if you had a more complex design, use a craft knife. And I have my pan pastels. So for this one, I did the magenta and purple. And then I did the magenta and blue for this one, but I think they're a little too samey-same. I want a bit more contrast between the two. So let's play with some different colors. Here's a few more of the pan pastels that I have. You can just use inexpensive chalk pastels, but what you don't want to use is one of these that has a shimmer. This is copper, and I don't know if you can see on camera, it has a bit of a mica shimmer. That is mica in there, and it will behave the same way as this mica powder, creating a resist instead of giving you the layers. So make sure you don't use any kind of a product that has the mica in it, or you're not going to get this effect. You want to have a soft, fluffy brush, one for each of your colors. And you can just start applying them however you want. If you have sticks of chalk pastel, you might want to use a craft knife just to shave some. Interestingly, the green isn't coming out very green, is it? Not like it looks in the pan. These pan pastels are kind of pricey, but it is a lovely saturated color that you get. You can also do the edges while you're at it, and then you won't have to worry about finishing your edges later. They'll all be done, just like on these. They'll finish nicely. See how I'm getting the layers here. And although the chalks are sitting on top of the mica powder right now and kind of obscuring it, after it's baked you can just rinse it off. So go to town, have fun, add as many layers as makes you happy. For the second piece, I'm going to use the Passages stencil. I just want to burnish this down to the clay a little bit, and I don't mind if it makes a little bit of an imprint in the clay. And again, you need a soft fluffy brush, and you're going to use this to apply the mica powder through the stencil, and you just kind of want to burnish it. You want to buff as much off of the surface of the stencil as you can, so that when you lift it up, you have a clean impression. I'm going to use just a dry towel to kind of get some of that excess off. Oh, bummer. See, I didn't burnish that down well. And now back to the pastel powders. Again, when you add these at this stage, they'll sit on top of the mica powder, but after it's baked, you can wash them right off. And I think in this case, I'm going to do blue and purple. And same as before, add as many layers as you like. I probably should have done it the way I did this one, which was to cut out the shape first, and that way I was able to finish my edges. I'll cut out the shape now, but it's going to make a mess. Was that the blue one? Oh well. And finish your edges, add your layers, and then bake them. Whenever you bake something on a tile, you want to add 15 minutes extra because the tile needs to heat up before it will ever let your clay get warm. I don't think that was a good idea. See, I picked up a bunch of mica powder on that, and now I think I kind of messed up my design. Again, that's why it's really helpful to understand the properties of the materials you're using, and that way you have a little bit more control over the creative process. So here they are after coming out of the oven. Now normally I would just do this in a sink of running water, but you just put it in water and then rub lightly, and you can see all of the powder comes off the area with the mica. And yes, I did indeed mess that side up. Wherever you put mica, you do not get another layer. And let's see about this one. Yeah, again, those lines are so fine, you almost don't even see them. So in this case, I will probably do the same thing I did, use that gold, use that oil-based paint marker. Now, interesting, I mustn't have, I guess I was brushing very delicately, and so I didn't get a lot of the powders adhered well. That's interesting. So a little bit of experimenting with different types of textures or applications, stencils, textures and such will serve you well to get the kind of results you want. So once they're all baked, you can layer these however you like to make pieces of jewelry, earrings. Make 2 pieces that are the same, and then you have a front and a back. Layer them with just a little bit of liquid clay. You can also add things like hot fix cabochons. You got an assortment in your mystical boho box. This is a wonderful tool, little rhinestone pickup tool. That's really cute there. And if you have any of these came in a previous Create Along box. These are 2mm crystals in Crystal AB, Aurora Borealis, and they fit perfectly in little circles in this design. Just make sure that they're on there, and then when you bake it again, of course you would do this once you had everything all layered, because they're not going to stick until they're baked, but there's a hot fix adhesive on the back. Then once you put it back in the oven to set everything together, it will stick them permanently to your piece. And then you can do whatever you want to do with them to make them into jewelry or home deck pieces. So I hope you take this technique and run with it using mica powder as a resist for pastels. The possibilities are endless. Happy creating!